Jack Myers, 42, a quiet man with a big heart and a strong reputation. He had worked as a high school history teacher in the nearby town of Willamette. Married with two daughters, Jack was well-liked and trusted. On August 13, 2024, he told his wife Tracy he was heading out for a solo fishing trip at the lake, a common weekend ritual he had kept for years. He kissed her goodbye, loaded his small motorboat with fishing gear and supplies, and drove off. That was the last time anyone saw him. When Jack didn't return the next day, Tracy called the police. A search party was sent out. His truck was found parked near the dock, his boat missing. For days, helicopters and volunteers combed the lake and nearby woods. Nothing was ever found. Not the boat, not his phone, not even a floating cooler. After a month, Jack was declared missing. A quiet funeral was held with only pictures and flowers. People assumed he had drowned or gotten lost in the woods. Some whispered about suicide, but those who knew Jack didn't believe it. The lake swallowed its secret whole. A year passed. Then on August 17, 2025, a local fisherman named Kyle Benson reported something strange. He had come out early in the morning to fish the north side of the lake, an area people rarely visited. There, tangled in reeds and driftwood, was an old motorboat, weathered but still intact. He pulled alongside it and called the sheriff when he saw what was inside. A dead man. But it wasn't Jack Myers. The man was white, bald, and in his 30s, wearing jeans and a long-sleeve shirt. His face was bloated but not unrecognizable. He had a gunshot wound to the chest. In his pocket was a faded ID that read, Trevor Kane, age 34, a name unfamiliar to locals. The police towed the boat back to shore and locked it down for investigation. Jack's name was engraved on the hull. A rusted tackle box inside held a pocket knife with Jack's initials. His jacket was still folded under the seat. So where was Jack? And who the hell was Trevor Kane? That was when Detective Rachel Monroe, a sharp-minded investigator from the Portland Bureau, was called in. Rachel was known for her patience and insight. She had solved 2 cold cases the previous year and wasn't afraid to dig into the past. She arrived in Willamette 3 days later. Standing at the lake's edge, Rachel looked at the boat now covered in a tarp and guarded by tape. Something about it didn't feel right. One man vanished. Another man was found. Same boat, a year apart. She took out her notebook, flipped to the first page, and wrote the words, Jack Myers, missing. Trevor Kane, dead in Jack's boat. Truth buried beneath water. She zipped her coat and stared at the still lake. It was time to pull up what the water tried to hide. Detective Rachel Monroe stood in the cool morning air, watching the forensic team finish their first sweep of the recovered boat. The scene had been carefully documented, but it raised more questions than answers. A dead man in a missing man's boat, a gunshot wound to the chest, and a year-long mystery washed up like driftwood. Rachel was not new to strange cases, but this one was already giving her that deep belly feeling, like a puzzle with the wrong pieces jammed together. She turned to the county sheriff, Mike Henley, a broad-shouldered man with a thick beard and tired eyes. Was Trevor Kane ever reported missing? Rachel asked. Mike shook his head. Nope. We ran his ID through the system. No missing person report, no local address. But his ID's real. He's from Nevada. Henderson, lived alone. Few old arrests for petty theft. Shoplifting, drunk and disorderly. Nothing violent. Rachel scribbled the details in her notepad. And how long has he been dead? Coroner says less than a week, Mike replied. Gunshot to the chest, close range. Looks like he died right there in the boat. But get this, his body wasn't decomposed too badly. It means he didn't die in the water. That boat must have drifted to that part of the lake recently. Rachel's brow furrowed. So someone used Jack's boat after Jack disappeared and ended up shooting Trevor in it, then just let it float off? Or left it to sink, Mike muttered. But it didn't. Rachel walked to the crime lab tent. She looked at the personal items recovered from the boat. Jack's fishing rod was snapped in 2. His tackle box was half empty. A lighter, an unopened bottle of beer. The knife with JM scratched into the handle. But no blood except under Trevor's body. The scene looked strange, clean, set up even. Later that day, Rachel drove to Visit Tracy Myers, Jack's wife. The Myers home was small but neat, with trimmed hedges and wind chimes on the porch. Tracy greeted Rachel with red eyes and a weak smile. She had the look of a woman who had cried for too long and run out of tears. Rachel sat with her at the kitchen table, notebook open again. "Mrs. Myers, I'm sorry for making you relive all this," Rachel began gently. "But I need to ask you a few questions about Jack." Tracy nodded. "Of course. Was there anyone Jack didn't get along with? Anyone who might want to hurt him?" Tracy shook her head. "Jack wasn't that kind of man. He was loved, quiet, dependable. He loved fishing, his girls, teaching. I can't think of anyone." "Had he been acting strangely before the trip? Nervous? Secretive?" She hesitated. "He did seem distracted that week. I asked him if something was wrong, and he said work was stressful. He'd been having issues with a parent at school. Someone angry about a grade." Rachel made a note. "Do you remember the name of that parent?" "Number, but I know he got a strange letter the night before he left. He didn't tell me what it said, just folded it and put it in his jacket pocket." Rachel's eyes lit up. "Do you still have that jacket?" "I don't. It was missing. I assumed he had it on him when he disappeared." Rachel stood up. "It was found in the boat." Tracy gasped. Back at the station, Rachel asked the lab to search the jacket again. Hours later, they found a hidden inside pocket, stitched shut but still reachable. Inside it, a piece of damp paper. It read, "You think you can just forget what happened? You owe more than silence. Meet me at Briar. Alone." No signature. Rachel leaned back in her chair. The note wasn't about fishing. It was a threat. A secret someone didn't want Jack to share. She picked up the crime photo of Trevor Kane. Something connected them. Somehow, this stranger from Nevada ended up in Jack Myers' boat, a year after Jack vanished, with a bullet in his chest. She stared at the photo again, and suddenly she noticed something odd. On Trevor's hand, a tattoo, a small anchor with the initials WJ. She circled it. The silent lake wasn't so silent after all. The next morning, Detective Rachel Monroe sat in her motel room with two things in front of her: a photo of Trevor Kane's hand showing the anchor tattoo, and her open laptop. Her instincts told her that tattoo meant something. The initials WJ underneath the anchor weren't random. She typed the words "Anchor Tattoo WJ Prison Gang" into the search bar. Several hits came up, mostly tattoos used in criminal circles. Anchors were often used by ex-sailors or gang members with ties to coastal drug operations. One image in a prison gang database matched closely: an anchor with WJ beneath it, used by a small-time Nevada crew known as the White Jackals. Rachel narrowed her eyes. The Jackals were not big players, but they were known for robbery, intimidation, and underground debt collections. Trevor Kane had a record. Maybe he had ties to them. But what did that have to do with Jack Myers, the quiet school teacher? She needed more. Rachel called her contact at the Nevada Department of Corrections. A man named Dean Foster answered. Retired now, but remembered everything. "Trevor Kane?" he said over the phone. "Yeah, I remember him. In and out of Henderson County lockup. Petty thief. Got caught in a stolen car ring once. Ran with the Jackals for a while, then dropped off the radar." "Did he have any known associates?" Rachel asked. "Plenty, but there was one guy he was close to, William Billy Jensen. He ran with him back in 2012. Got out 2 years before Kane. Heard Billy cleaned up, changed his name, moved out of state." Rachel's pulse picked up. "Changed his name?" "Yeah, got married, moved somewhere up north." "Oregon, maybe? Why?" Rachel's thoughts raced. She opened the Willamette School District staff records and searched for Jack Myers. Full name, Jack William Myers. Her heart thudded. Could Billy Jensen be Jack Myers? She called up old mugshots from Nevada's archives. After a few minutes of scrolling, she found one from 2011. William Jensen. Dark hair, sharp eyes, faint scar above his brow. She zoomed in, then opened Jack's school photo from 2 years ago. Same scar, same eyes. Her pen slipped out of her hand. Jack Myers had a past, a dangerous one. He was William Jensen. Jack had changed his name, started a new life, become a teacher, a husband, a father, and for years no one knew. But someone from the old life had found him. Trevor Kane. That explained the letter, the stress, the fishing trip. She picked up the threatening note again. You think you can just forget what happened? You owe more than silence. Meet me at Briar. Alone. Trevor had come to blackmail him, or maybe worse. Rachel drove to Tracy Meyer's home immediately. Tracy opened the door, looking more tired than before. Mrs. Myers, Rachel said gently, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Tracy nodded nervously. Did you know your husband was once named William Jensen? Tracy's face froze. Her lips parted, but no words came. I believe Jack was hiding from his past. Do you know who Trevor Kane was? Tracy slowly sank into the nearest chair. He told me once, before we got married, that he had made mistakes. He was involved with some bad people. He said he testified against someone and entered a program to disappear. They gave him a new identity. I thought it was over. Rachel frowned. Testified? Tracy nodded. He was a witness in a robbery gone wrong. A man died. Jack agreed to testify in exchange for protection. They gave him a clean record and moved him here. Now it made sense. Jack had been in witness protection. Trevor found him after all these years and came to Lake Briar with one goal: force him to pay or expose him. But if Jack had disappeared a year ago and Trevor just turned up dead last week, where had Jack been all this time? Or was he dead too? Rachel stared at the lake from Tracy's window. Someone was hiding something, and the water only covered so much. She would find the rest, even if she had to drag it out herself. Detective Rachel Monroe stood once again on the rocky shore of Lake Briar, the cold wind pressing against her coat. She stared at the still waters, then at the forest lining the edges of the lake. If Jack Myers had survived that meeting with Trevor Kane, he had to be somewhere close. And if he hadn't, then someone else had taken care of Trevor and dumped the boat to cover it up. The forensic team was now examining the bottom of the recovered boat more closely. Something didn't add up. The engine was intact, but the propeller had weeds tangled around it, as if it had run ashore recently. And inside the hull, a forensic technician named Allie had found something odd stuck beneath the boat's floor panels, a torn page from a journal. Rachel took it with gloves and read the barely legible pencil writing. I warned him. I didn't come here for violence, but he wouldn't shut up, said he'd burn it all down. I had no choice. I'm not going back. The handwriting was neat, educated, not the scrawl of someone like Trevor Kane. Rachel looked up sharply. We need to search the perimeter of the North Shore, she said. He may have been hiding here. Later that day, with the help of park rangers and local deputies, she walked the densely wooded trail that led into the pine-covered hills. Only a few hikers came this far, and most of the area was untouched. But 2 miles in, just above a mossy ridge, they found it. A cabin. Old, wooden, and half-covered in vines. The door hung slightly off the hinges. No number, no sign. Just hidden, quiet, and forgotten by most maps. Rachel stepped inside. It was dusty but lived in. A cot in the corner, a small wood stove, empty food cans, a single oil lantern. But the most telling signs were the stack of books on the desk, history textbooks, lesson plans, and one half-burnt wallet. Inside that wallet was a faded driver's license. Jack Myers. Rachel took a breath. Jack was here, she whispered. In the corner was a notebook. It was mostly empty, except for one full page dated 8 months ago. She read aloud. Trevor showed up again. I begged him to leave. He laughed in my face. He wanted money or he'd tell everyone who I was. I panicked. I grabbed the gun. I didn't mean to shoot. I just wanted to scare him. He lunged. I pulled the trigger. He dropped. Blood. So much of it. I couldn't go back. Couldn't face Tracy. Couldn't explain. I took the boat to the northern dock. I stayed here, watching the lake, every day, waiting. Rachel's hands trembled. So Jack had killed Trevor, but in self-defense by his account, then hid, living like a ghost in the woods. But then who placed Trevor's body back in the boat just a week ago? Rachel called the sheriff and gave instructions for the cabin to be sealed. Then she returned to town and asked Tracy one final question. Did anyone else know Jack's secret? Tracy hesitated, eyes blinking fast. Just one. Our old neighbor, Tom Sanders. He and Jack were close. Jack confided in him once, years ago when he had a panic attack. Tom promised to keep it a secret. Why? Rachel nodded slowly. Because someone moved Trevor's body weeks after the shooting. Someone who knew where Jack was hiding and wanted the body to be found. That night, Rachel pulled into Tom Sanders' driveway. His house was dark, but as she stepped onto the porch, she saw something that made her pulse quicken. A pair of muddy boots by the door, and beside them, a fishing knife with JM carved on the handle. Detective Rachel Monroe stood motionless on the porch of Tom Sanders' house, her hand hovering just above the doorknob. The muddy boots were too clean to have been from last week's rain. They were fresh. And that knife, it was the same kind recovered from the boat. Or so she thought. She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out the evidence photo from the boat, and held it up in the porch light. Side by side, she saw it clearly. 2 knives, same initials, different wood grain. Rachel felt the hairs on her neck rise. Someone had planted the knife in the boat. Someone who had another one, because they had made both. Her knuckles rapped sharply on the door. A shuffle came from inside, then silence. Tom Sanders, it's Detective Monroe. We need to talk, right now. More silence. Then the door creaked open. Tom stood there, tall, weathered, and faking surprise. Detective, what's this about? I already spoke with the sheriff last week. Rachel offered a tight smile. Mind if I come in? He hesitated, then stepped aside. Sure, come on in. The house smelled like tobacco and dust. Mounted deer antlers hung on the wall beside a row of family photos. Rachel scanned the room as they sat. She got straight to the point. Did you know Jack was hiding in that cabin up by the ridge? Tom blinked too quickly. Cabin? Number I didn't even know he was alive. You sure about that? Rachel leaned forward. He confided in you once. Trusted you. You were close. Tom looked away. That was years ago. Rachel kept her voice low. I think you found him. Maybe not right away. Maybe after the shooting. Maybe he came to you. Told you what happened. I didn't. I think you helped him hide. Maybe even brought him supplies. And then, when things got quiet, you decided to fix everything. Tom's eyes narrowed. You don't know what you're talking about. Rachel dropped the photo of the knife on the table. Then the one she took from his porch. 2 knives, Tom. Same initials. You made one, put it in the boat. You moved Trevor's body, after months. Why? Tom's face turned pale. He was ruining Jack's life, he finally said. His voice was low, shaking. Jack was a good man. He changed. He didn't deserve what Trevor did to him. That man was evil. Threatened to kill Tracy. Said he'd take the girls. Jack snapped. He came to me, begged for help. I found him. Broken, scared. He couldn't face the law. So you took matters into your own hands? Tom nodded slowly. I thought, if the body was found, maybe people would stop asking questions. Maybe they'd just think Trevor killed Jack, then vanished. No one needed to know the rest. Rachel stood. That's not your decision to make. I know. He suddenly looked older, tired, guilty. I just wanted to protect him. He saved my life once, years ago. I owed him. Rachel walked to the door. Tom, I'm going to need you to come with me. He didn't resist. At the station, Rachel recorded Tom's confession. He admitted to finding Jack after the shooting, helping him hide, and later planting the body in the boat, hoping the police would write it off as a long-lost tragedy. Rachel sat alone in the interrogation room after Tom was led away. Everything pointed to one truth. Jack Myers was alive. She opened her notebook and wrote, Trevor Kane, dead Tom Sanders, accomplice Jack Myers, fugitive or victim? But there was one thing still missing. Where was Jack now? The cabin was empty when they found it. No blood, no signs of struggle, just a history book left open on the cot, and a trail of footprints leading toward the forest. Detective Rachel Monroe stood once more at the threshold of the hidden cabin, the morning sun slicing through the thick pine trees. Her breath puffed in the cold air as she stared at the dirt trail winding into the forest. fresh tracks, recently disturbed leaves, and broken twigs. Whoever left the cabin didn't go far. She stepped carefully, following the signs. The path was narrow and overgrown. Her boots crunched softly on pine needles. Squirrels darted overhead. The silence was deep, like the woods were holding their breath. Rachel moved slowly, one hand near her holster, the other balancing her phone's flashlight. After nearly 20 minutes of walking, she saw it, an old fire tower, partially rusted but still standing. The kind built decades ago for watching wildfires. It had been decommissioned, forgotten, just like Jack. The trapdoor at the top was closed, but smoke curled faintly from a side vent. Someone was inside. She climbed the creaking steps one at a time, the boards groaning beneath her weight. When she reached the top, she knocked twice, then spoke. "Jack, it's Detective Monroe. I know you're in there." Silence. Then the latch clicked. The door creaked open slowly. Inside stood Jack Myers, or William Jensen. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken, beard overgrown. But it was him, alive. Rachel stepped in and shut the door gently behind her. The small room was filled with old supplies, cans, blankets, a broken radio. On the wall, maps of the lake, strings and pins. He had been watching from here, hiding, surviving. "I figured you'd come eventually," Jack said quietly. Rachel studied him. "Why didn't you come forward after the shooting?" He sat on an overturned crate. "Because I knew no one would believe me. My past, the name change, witness protection, it would all unravel. And Trevor, he made it sound like I'd planned it, like I wanted him dead. I panicked." Rachel remained quiet. "I didn't mean to kill him," Jack continued. "He came at me screaming, said he'd tell Tracy, hurt the kids, said my life was a lie, and maybe it was. But I didn't want to die for a mistake I tried to leave behind. So you ran." "I ran. Tom found me later. I didn't ask him to help, but he did anyway. He brought food, supplies, and when winter came, he helped me move here." Rachel nodded slowly. "He also moved the body." Jack swallowed hard. "He told me what he did. I was angry at first, but part of me hoped it meant this nightmare would end, that the lake would take the truth and bury it." "It didn't," Rachel said softly. "I know." They sat in silence. The lake shimmered in the distance below them, a quiet witness to everything. "I didn't want this life," Jack whispered. "I wanted to teach, be a father. I just didn't want the past to destroy that." Rachel sighed. "You'll have to come with me. We'll talk to the DA. With Tom's statement, the evidence of self-defense, there's a chance they'll go lenient." Jack nodded. "Just let me say goodbye to the lake." She gave him a moment. He stepped out onto the small balcony, breathing in the cold, pine-scented air. His shoulders, once slumped with guilt, straightened slightly, as if letting go of a weight he had carried for far too long. Rachel stood behind him, hand gently resting near her badge. The man everyone thought was dead had never stopped running, but now finally the chase was over. 3 weeks later, Detective Rachel Monroe sat in the courthouse hallway, watching the slow swing of the oak double doors across from her. Inside, the final hearing was underway. The State versus William Jensen, also known as Jack Myers. The case that had started with a body in a boat now rested on the testimony of a man who had vanished and the mercy of the law. She opened her notebook and looked over the notes one last time, making sure every piece of the puzzle had been captured clearly in her final report. Rachel closed the book and glanced at the local news reporters waiting down the hall. One had a microphone out already, eager to grab a quote. She wasn't in the mood for fame. This wasn't that kind of story. When the doors finally opened, Jack stepped out in handcuffs, flanked by 2 officers, but he wasn't going to prison. The judge had ruled in his favor. Time served, suspended sentence, required therapy, probation, and an official end to his identity as Jack Myers. The court acknowledged the truth. William Jensen acted in defense of himself and his family. He had lost a year of his life hiding, another building a false identity, and almost everything else because of a man who came back to destroy him. Rachel stood and met him at the hallway exit. "You're free," she said simply. Jack smiled faintly. "Feels strange. Like I don't even know who I am anymore. You're still a teacher, still a father. That doesn't change. He nodded. What happens now? That's up to you. Tracy was waiting just outside in the parking lot. She looked unsure when she saw him, holding the hands of their